My name's Marty. Welcome to this video series on building your own TE style electric guitar kit from Guitar Kit World. So in the following video, I'm going to show you how I put together this particular guitar. We're going to cover the four main areas of kit guitar building, including finishing, installing your hardware, connecting up your electronics, and then doing a basic final setup. So if you've never built a kit guitar before or don't have specialist tools, don't worry, I'm not a luthier myself. In fact, I'm not even all that handy. But just about anyone can put together a guitar like this, just with the basic tools and a little bit of patience. Okay, so the guitar we're working with today is a TE style guitar kit featuring mahogany body, maple neck, engineered ebony fretboard with dot inlays, and of course the ashtray style bridge with single coil pickup in the back and single coil pickup at the neck. We've also got three-way selector switch, tone and volume. Okay, so from here I'm going to take the video back to the very start of the build, and we're going to start by putting the guitar up on the bench and inspecting the body for any marks or scratches. Okay, so I've got the TE kit up on the bench now. The first thing to do before we inspect the body is just to remove this pick guard. It'll just be held in place by a couple of small screws, so I'll quickly take those out. And now we can have a closer look at the body. So what we're looking for are scratches or imperfections that we need to sand out before we start applying any finishing product. So most of the time, the guitars come out of the factory already sanded to about 320 grit, which is a good surface for applying finish to. So what we're really just doing is looking for any marks or scratches. So a common place this might occur is around the bottom where you get machine marks. You can just see some evidence of that now. Bring my hand over that, so we'll give that a light sand. The other place to inspect is the horns. This one looks pretty good. I've just got some 320 grit paper here. What I'm going to do is just lightly sand the surface. I've got a hard sanding block. So the reason we use a hard sanding block and not one of these molded sanding blocks, especially on flat surfaces, this will conform to any bumps. So basically what you're going to do is the softer backing is just going to allow those bumps to remain in place, where a hard block like this, when you're sanding, it's just going to sand it flat. So that's what we're trying to do. So as I mentioned, this TE is a mahogany kit, so to get a nice flat finish we're going to need to grain fill it and then prime. So grain filling is really the process of filling in the pores of the timber. What I prefer to use is a dedicated grain filler. Now the one I'm using in this instance is just a natural grain filler from Timbermate. It should be mixed to a fairly runny consistency, more like a glue, I guess. I've mixed that with about 20% or 20% water. You can tint grain filler as well if you like. Many people do that to accentuate the grain. So if I had a nice spalted maple or something like that, I might want to rub some darker dark stain in with the grain fill and then get that right into the pores. And then when I sand it back, the grain will be accentuated. So we've left our TE kit to dry overnight. It had 2 coats of grain fill yesterday. And now I'm just coming back and removing all the excess, so just sanding it down. So what I'd recommend using is a higher grit paper, like a 400 or a 600 grit paper should suffice. And what you're really trying to do is just sand flush with the surface of the timber. So when you're sanding, you're not trying to remove any timber at all. We're just trying to get it flush with the surface, and that will mean that the pores that we filled yesterday remain filled. So I'll just start sanding, and I'll sand a section and we'll bring the camera down, just have a look at what I'm talking about there. As you can see in this corner here, you can probably see that we've removed most of the excess, but the pore marks, the tiny pore marks, are still filled, which is basically what we're trying to do. So if you did sand too far, or if those pore marks weren't filled enough, you may need to consider a third coat. I'd probably make that third coat a little runnier, so add a little bit more water next time. Okay, so that's the guitar all prepped and ready for priming. So got the masking in place. Good thing about a TE style kit, there's less cavities to mask up, but that's pretty much the job. We've grain filled, we've sanded back the grain fill, we've masked up the cavities, cleaned the timber, so now it's time to prime. First step when you're doing any sort of painting, obviously, is to shake the can up really well. Okay, so what I normally do is just start with the sides. So this means there's less overspray. Now I'm putting this on very lightly. This first coat is really just a dust coat, so about 6 to 8 inches from the guitar. Just work your way around. Let that dry for about 10 minutes and then come back and do your second coat. This has actually turned out quite well. There's not too much grit on the surface or anything. Pretty good day for spraying, really. I sprayed outside and there wasn't too much dust or grit flowing around, which is good. I also hung the guitar inside to dry so that it couldn't get any grit caught up in the finish. So what we've got here is a pretty good job. What I'll be doing is just sanding with a 220 grit paper, just trying to scuff up the surface, basically make sure it's nice and level so that our solid colour coats that we follow up with adhere well. Now, a couple of things tips I'd recommend to avoid sand throughs. I never really sand edges. You'll find your edges are really quite thin anyway. So what I tend to prefer doing is just avoid the edges and sand the main flat surfaces of the body. At least with a 220 grit or something like that anyway. Just keep cleaning your sandpaper out, change the sandpaper as required, and don't go for a mirror flat finish here. We're really just trying to scuff up the surface so that our next coat will take nicely. Okay, so I'm back out in the yard again. I'm going to give a solid colour coat to our TE guitar kit. As you can see, it's a little bit of an overcast day. Check the weather though, there's no immediate threat of rain, so I'm not too concerned, but obviously that's something to keep an eye on as well. So I've shaken up my can, shaking this up for about a minute. Now, you shake cans up for about a minute after you hear the rattle of the ball inside. And we'll just be spraying just the same way we sprayed our primer. So I'll start with the edges and the sides first. I'll be hiding the can on an angle towards the guitar, about 6 to 8 inches from the guitar. And when I do my front and back, I'll be doing long passes and overlapping the spray by about 50% each time. Okay, so we'll do our first coat now. Okay, so I'm about to do my second coat. One thing I like to do between coats, I've got some boiling water down here. What I do is dip the nozzle in the water, which just unclogs the nozzle and prevents any large droplets sort of coming out in the first spray onto the guitar. So I'll just do that. So before you do all these things, if you follow the correct procedures, you cut down on the amount of sanding you do and the amount of solid colour coats you need to put on the guitar. So I'll do the second coat now, just same as the first, but I'll apply it just a little bit heavier. I've just got some 800 grit paper here. I'm just going to lightly just rough that paint up a little bit. Your sandpaper is going to clog up a little at this stage, so just be sure to continually be cleaning off your paper and also cleaning off the surface of the guitar. I'm just going to apply the first coat of clear gloss now. Giving this can a good shake up, but generally, as per the colour coats, when you hear the rattle, shake for about a minute, and we're just going to follow the same principles we did with the colour coat. So not applying too thick, we're trying to avoid runs, going around the sides and back first, and working our way in long passes, just overlapping by about 50% each time. So. Okay, so I've just had to change camera angles. It's a very hot day here today, and my phone was actually overheating in the heat. So that's another good reason to not hang your guitars outside. Obviously, we don't want to hang our guitars outside on windy days anyway, because a lot of dust can build up on the surface. But you also don't want the paint getting too hot. So what I'd recommend is hanging your guitar when you're finished in a cool, relatively dry area. Okay, so ready to do my second coat now. And same practice as before, except this time I'll be cleaning out the nozzle. I've got some hot water here. I'm just going to give the nozzle a quick dip in that, and then give it a quick spray, clear out any build up around the nozzle, and we'll just apply the same approach as last time, only this time I'll probably apply it just a little bit thicker. So I'm going to let that dry for another 10 minutes and then spray a third coat, and that will do us for today. I'll then leave the guitar to hang in a cool place downstairs, and we'll come back and assess our work tomorrow. I'd say from there I'll probably scuff up the clear coat just a little bit more and repeat the process over the next 3 days. So what I'll be looking to do is get about 9 coats of clear on this guitar. So that's the method, that's what I'd recommend to do. And again, just remember, windy days like today, if you can spray inside, it's going to be better. You won't build up as much dust on the surface of your wet paint.